Hello everyone, I'm Dr. Alkistis Agio, and today I'm going to speak to you about self-leadership using the 3 golden principles of Greek philosophy. So it was Socrates who said that no man can lead others who cannot lead themselves. I mean, think about it. How can you lead other people when you cannot manage your stress, your anger, your frustration, your anxiety? And the importance of self-leadership has been known since the beginning of history, when wise people like Homer spoke about it in the Odyssey, the story of Odysseus returning home after the Trojan War. He set off on the journey known as the Odyssey, filled with obstacles and monsters and very difficult challenges. These all represent the challenges that we all face in our life. I'm sure you've been through and are still going through many challenges in your business and things that you believe are preventing you from reaching your goal or the outcome you want. Odysseus finally does reach Ithaca, the goal that he had, because he had a very clear goal from the beginning. And that's very important in self-leadership. Let's go back to what exactly is self-leadership. Self-leadership is knowing who you are, what you want, and why you want it. It also entails formulating a clear strategy for achieving your goal, and it entails inspiring yourself and others along the way. So as you can see, it's a very complex set of skills. But today I'm going to make it easy for you by showing you, as I said, these 3 principles of Greek philosophy. They can work as a compass, a GPS for you to achieve your goal. I'm going to tell you that in just a moment, but I just want to give you a little information about myself and how I found these inner compass of the Greek philosophers. So I have been a management trainer for a very long time, over 20 years. And my main work is helping people in presentation skills, influence skills, and communication skills. I had started out with the Dale Carnegie system. I'm sure you all know Dale Carnegie, a kind of pioneer in leadership training, who has written the book How to Win Friends and Influence People. And in this book, in the first chapter, Dale Carnegie says, the ideas I stand for here in this book are not my own. I borrowed them from Socrates. So that just tells us that a lot of the leadership training is borrowed from the ancient Greeks, especially presentation skills, because you see it was Aristotle who wrote the first manual ever on the art of influence and persuasion. Everybody needs influence and persuasion to influence people to buy things or to make change. Influence and persuasion are better, obviously, than wars. So it's all about negotiating and influencing. And Aristotle, who was a student of Plato, who was a student of Socrates, the original Greek guru, if you like, wrote this book called The Rhetoric. And as I taught the system of Aristotle, I began to notice that his system of learning how to influence others could also be used for ourselves. But let's start at the basis. What is Aristotle's system of influence and persuasion? He claimed that there are 3 basic principles. The first is ethos. A speaker has to have ethos, or if you like, the English word is integrity, credibility. So, for example, if I want to help you to stop smoking, I cannot be a smoker myself, right? Because that lacks integrity. You won't believe me, you won't follow my advice, because I do not embody what I'm trying to teach you. So if you want to influence others, you have to embody what you are trying to press upon others. The second quality that a good speaker or influencer has to have is pathos. That's the root of the English word passion. Pathos means emotional integrity. So the speaker or influencer has to understand their audience on a very deep level. What are their fears? So that when you're talking to them, when you're influencing them, you have to show them a way out of a solution to their fears. You have to know their insecurities and anxieties and give them a way out. That's why they're listening to you, because you can help them. You have to know their dreams. What are they passionate about? What do they want to accomplish? Because if you know their dreams and their visions, then you can again help them to reach those goals. So they are going to be listening to you very intently if you know that. And your body language has to express this connection. This is all part of the pathos principle. And lastly, thirdly, you need to have logos. Logos is the root of the word logic and reason. And so if you want to influence people, if you want to change their mind about something, you need to give them logical arguments, facts, statistics, case studies, strategies. And in this way, you will appeal to their reason. So when you have, as a speaker, ethos, pathos, and logos, then you are a great speaker, an influencer, and you will make change happen. There's also two other principles Aristotle talked about. If you ask me, they go under logos. It has to do with timing. The Greek word is chronos or keros. And you have to also have a telos. Telos in Greek means the outcome. So a speaker or influencer, you have to have the outcome that you want in mind from the beginning. Okay? Why am I speaking to you? I want a certain outcome. I want a certain result. You have to be clear on your results. So this system, ethos, pathos, logos, that is so wonderful for influencing others, I discovered, it was like right under my nose, right under all our nose, that this system can also be used for influencing ourselves. In other words, self-leadership, right? We said that self-leadership, you need to be able to influence yourself and others. So ethos, pathos, logos is a tool that you can easily remember. Another metaphor we can use is that of a charioteer. In ancient Greece, they had these people who would get onto a chariot and lead horses. You can imagine a charioteer with a white horse and a black horse. The charioteer represents ethos. It's your credibility, it's your values, it's who you are, it's your integrity. The white horse can represent the logos, the reason, using your logic and reason at all times to guide yourself. And then the black horse can be the horse of pathos, passion, to rein in your emotions, especially the emotions that are toxic or that are putting you back, the beliefs you have that are setting you back. So as the charioteer, you stand there and you are reining in, harnessing these powerful stallions towards the telos, the outcome you want, in other words. So whenever you have a toxic or a fear thought, something keeping you up at night, it's good to pass it through the filter. Is it true? Is it kind? Is it useful to me? And if you're really honest with these three questions, they can act as your compass. in life. You can move forward with confidence and certainty. It's really an inner GPS. Even when you're choosing your goals, you can say, is this goal aligned with my ethos? Is it aligned with what I value in life? Does it have a purpose and a meaning for me? That is aligning with your own ethos. You're going to check your pathos. Is this goal or outcome, is it good for me in my emotional self? Is it a kind thing? Is it a creative thing? Is it a positive thing? Something that makes my heart sing, if you like? Is it something that's really going to be positive for me? And then you pass it through the test of logos, logic and reason. Does it make sense for me to achieve this goal? What is it going to be useful for in my life or others? So that's the system in a nutshell for guiding yourself and, really leading yourself. This is what self-leadership is all about. Asking yourself some vital questions linked to these three principles, these guiding principles. And either way, you can use these principles, as I said, also for actual influencing and persuading others, but you can also use them for yourself as a compass and a navigation system. So that's what I wanted to share with you today. If you have any questions, feel free to write them in the comments or send me an email, book an appointment with me, and I'll be happy to clarify the system and how it can work for you. This is Alkistis Agio from Greece.
Watching HybriCON 2022, and I'm speaking to Dr. Agio. Thank you so very much for that really lovely keynote. It was completely thrilling. Thanks for doing that for us.
It was a pleasure to do it. I love talking about Greek philosophy and its practical applications.
I love it because, I immediately, when we started talking about this event, I started looking up and I came across the gang of three, Aristotle, Socrates, Plato, and I'm thrilled because this is a part of history that's just so rich. And I think that these three characters are their thinking was so pervasive that it still influences us to this day.
It's true. It's true.
Tell me about your discovery.
Demystified many things. You can say that Greek civilization, especially classical Greek civilization, was kind of the beginning of using logic and reason. The Greeks said it's okay. There may be gods out there. There may be one god or many god. That's all fine and nice. But what about finding happiness here on earth for the average Joe? Not just for the pharaohs and the kings and the autocratic rulers. It's really about, really who are we and how can we find our own happiness?
That's just marvelous. Now I want to ask you about your journey to discover all of this. You do mention that you started with Dale Carnegie and how you started delving deeper into this.
Yes.
I've had my own discovery of Aristotle in terms of structure, and so I would be so keen to hear how that unrolled for you.
Yes, I was teaching in Dale Carnegie the art of influence and persuasion. And in all the great Ivy League schools, in all the great companies of the world, they use this ancient system of Aristotle. Aristotle was the first to write a manual on influence and persuasion. So he brought up these three beautiful principles, and I started researching because of my Greek roots, my Greek heritage. I wanted to find out more about Aristotle, Plato, Socrates, and this is how it got me down this rabbit hole. Of course, I had read before. My father, when I was a young lady, often spoke about philosophy with me, but I never really understood how it could be applied practically. So I like to combine this system of self-questioning and using logic and reason to solve problems.
That's beautiful. So for leaders, particularly in these times that we live in now, that
Yes.
self-inquiry is so critical in terms of the idea of ethos, isn't it?
You know, what's the most important is asking yourself if your thoughts are true. Because a lot of the times we deceive ourselves. You know, Daniel Goleman, the great Harvard professor, he wrote The Emotional Intelligence, but also wrote a book called The Lies We Tell Ourselves. This is exactly what Socrates stated 2,500 years ago. This habit of self-deception, of cognitive bias, that prevents us from seeing the bigger picture and prevents us from seeing solutions. It keep, you know, if you don't ask questions, how will you get solutions or even better approaches? You have to say, is this the best thing I can do, or can I do better? How can we do this easier, if you like? How can we do it and make everyone win? When you ask questions, you open worlds of possibility.
No doubt about that. And I'm wondering, in this space where a lot of people probably around the world were spending time in lockdown and doing a lot of self-reflection, I wonder if there's not a bigger consciousness in the world for people to be a little more self-aware and doing a little bit more self-inquiry. So while you speak about leaders who need to be in that space where they have to self-inquire and look at these three elements very carefully, isn't it perhaps on a wider base so much more important for everybody to self-lead?
I think you're absolutely right. COVID gave us, it was like a pause in the fast-moving life. And we said, hang on a moment. You know, it was like a self-imposed retreat for self-inquiry. And things came up to the surface, and some people had time to take some courses online, do some therapy, mental health issues, look at those, inquire about your life. Am I doing the right thing? Am I on the right track? Am I the person who I want to be? So a lot of people reevaluated themselves. So this is self-inquiry. This is definitely the philosophical approach to life.
Beautiful. Now, Dr. Agio, if somebody wanted to work with you, I want to have a little bit of information. Obviously, your landing page is going to have some of your details and your marvelous books and your TED Talk. How do you normally work with people? Where can they get a hold of you?
Well, I love to travel to beautiful places. I'd love to come to South Africa. I travel to get to seminars, to do seminars. I go often to Dubai and the Gulf, but also online, like we're doing now, or hybrid learning. I'm all about hybrid learning. I was doing these group coaching calls since 2004, if you can imagine. And people thought I was nuts. How can you do therapy or coaching online? How do people open up? Actually, people open up and are more honest with themselves. Sometimes when you're at a distance, when they're in the comfort of their own home, or just more comfortably dressed even. And in this way, they can relax, open up, and look at what's there. So I'm open to both online and in person.
Excellent. So I'm hoping that there are a lot of people here on HybriCON who are immediately going to go to your website and check that out. We're going to take a short break, so don't go away. There's a lot more coming, and we are going to speak to Dr. Agio more right after this. Welcome back. This is HybriCON 2022. We're talking to Dr. Agio, who has just given us such interesting background to Aristotle and Socrates and Plato, the Gang of Three, and just how very, very influential that thinking was. And I want to come back to it. You talked a lot about a lot of that thinking, as high level as it was also for every man. Do you want to comment on that?
Yes, because you see, in the if you look at the world at the time of classical Greece, if you look around, what kind of government systems or religious systems, um, a lot of them were telling you that happiness and success are going to come to you as the average person, right? They're going to come to you after you die. Don't look for happiness or fulfillment or trying to fulfill your potential here on earth. Just keep your head down and do what you're told. The Greeks were radical in proposing that every man, every person, every person can vote. They invented democracy. They allowed everyone in the state to vote. And this is the free way of thinking. This was a radical change, if you think about it, for those times. We take it for granted that we have a right to vote, or that we have the right to self-determination and finding happiness. It's even in the Bill of Rights, the pursuit of happiness, they say in the United States Bill of Rights. We take these things for granted. But in those times, it was by far not taken for granted. It was only the privilege of the very rich, or the servers of the king or queen, the royalty, the priests, but never the average person. And so I think it was a radical change, and has influenced our civilization ever since. And also the aspect of truth. You see,
Yeah.
the Greeks said, leave the gods where they are, let them do their job. But right here on earth, we have to figure out a way to live with justice, with truth, with transparency, find ways of living our potential, bringing our life, and finding happiness, essentially, as a right of all people. And it affected especially Western civilization. And for me, I believe it's just spread all over. And today, these are givens. These are expected.
Absolutely, absolutely. And I think on a note of truth, I'm wondering if the world isn't getting ready for much more transparency and much more truth right now. Isn't there's a change happening,
Well, you
isn't
can
there?
say that technology facilitates truth, can facilitate truth, but can also facilitate deception. So
Sure.
all these powerful tools we have to make sure they're being used well, and for transparency, for justice, for truth, for clarity, for ease, for more people to access things. But without truth, we have no civilization. We have no relationships. We have no business. If you base things on lies and deception, it's going to boomerang to you, to your children, to the society. It boomerangs on us. So the point is for each citizen to be responsible to live with their integrity. And if you like, integrity gives you power, actually. It makes you stand in the world differently than if you are some kind of liar or deceiving. You can fool some people some of the time, but you can't fool everyone for a long time, right?
Surely.
So I think it's just safer when you live with integrity.
I love that. I love that.
It just gives you power. It aligns everything. Who you are, what you're saying, what you're thinking, what you're doing. If those are aligned, you radiate confidence.
That's beautiful. And it's coming back to that message that you had about ethos and pathos and logos. I wanted to ask you, in your webinar, you have this marvelous story about Socrates, I think, who had somebody come with a story, and he was going, wait a minute.
It's a short little
Please, would
parable
you share that with us? Would you share that with us?
So
Thank you.
Socrates, they say, was walking along the beach sometime, and someone runs up to him and says, "Oh, master, I have to tell you a story about one of your students." And Socrates says, "Okay, just a moment, hold on. It has to pass the test of three questions." "Okay, what's the question?" Well, is what you are about to tell me true? Are you absolutely sure it's true? The guy thinks, well, no, I'm not really sure. I heard it from someone who heard it from someone else. And Socrates says, is it kind? Is it a kind thing you have to say about my student? Kind? No, not really. It's kind of malicious gossip. Socrates says, what is it going to be useful to me? Is it useful? The guy says, no, not really, not practically useful to you. So Socrates says, if it's not kind, it's not useful, it's not true, I don't want to listen to it. So this little story exemplifies, firstly, asking questions, filtering our thoughts. Just like you filter food, you won't allow poison in and toxins. You should very carefully filter what's coming in towards you. In terms of thoughts, in terms of people telling you, in terms of news, where you get your news from, fact check. And so it's a beautiful story. It exemplifies three questions we can all ask ourselves when we're getting information, but also when we are giving ourselves information. In other words, to overcome self-deception. For example, if you have an insecurity, you might say, I'm not going to reach that goal. It's too hard, whatever. You have to just ask yourself, is that true that this goal is unreachable for me? How true is that statement? Is it 100% true? Haven't I reached some goals? Haven't I proven that I can do so? Or hasn't so-and-so done it? If so can do it, it's humanly possible. So question, are your thoughts true? Because we lie to ourselves a lot. And this brings us down very often. We tell ourselves things that are not true, and we deceive ourselves, and we're just shooting ourselves in the foot.
Marvelous story. Thank you. And I want to ask now in closing, if somebody is watching this and they do want to work with you, obviously this kind of process on using the Greek philosophy in a system, in a new organization is not something that happens overnight. How long does this kind of take? And it's obviously also something that one needs to refresh regularly, right? Tell us a little bit about how you work.
It's a system. I have a book. My book is From Fear to Freedom, and it's available on Amazon, but you can also download a free summary from my website. And it's actually a workbook. It has the theory part that I expand on a little, but it has 6 exercises based on these principles of Greek philosophy. So it's a very hands-on book, and it's often the book I use in the seminars and workshops that I do for companies, either in person or online, like a webinar like this. I have a system in place. I called it the Alkistis Method. It's just a system that combines Greek philosophy with neuroscience or neuro-coaching. So it's the philosophy of the ancients, but also the most modern way of learning. Everything, how the brain works, how your brain processes information, how you can use neuron regeneration, how to rewire your brain. So it combines these in 3 simple steps. And it's a very easy method. I made it so that anyone can apply it, from a CEO to a cleaning lady. If they use this system, it's simple and straightforward, but it doesn't mean that it's easy. You have to keep working it at various levels. You just keep going up the levels, and it works at every stage of your development.
Excellent. Dr. Agio, thank you so very, very much. That is just so insightful. We really loved having you on the show. Thank you. And if you are at home and you're watching this, do go over to that landing page, and Dr. Alkistis Agio, check her out.